Hello, I'm Jason Ruiz, the City Hall reporter here at the Long Beach Post, and welcome to one of the Post debates. This one's featuring the candidates for the city's 9th City Council district. It is the city's northernmost district and generally includes the areas north of South Street. It has changed a little bit though from the last election because some of the neighborhoods on the western side, like the Coolidge Triangle and Longwood, were redistributed out, and they're now part of the 8th. And for the first time in 8 years, there's going to be a new city council member in this district. And it's going to be one of these two candidates here that we have with us today. This is one of several debates that we're hosting for prior to the November 8th election. For more of our coverage, including head-to-head comparisons of these candidates and others, go to lbpost.com/elections. Co-hosting with me today is Jeremiah Dobruck. He's the breaking news editor here at the Long Beach Post. And over the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be asking questions of candidates for this city council district. And they are Joni Ricks-Oddie and Jenny Gonzalez.
And hi, I'm Jeremiah Dobruck. I'll be your co-moderator today. And here's some of the ground rules for today. Each candidate's going to have 2 minutes to answer each question. And there's a timer on screen. The audience won't be able to see the timer, but the candidates and us moderators can see the timer. And we just ask that you guys wrap up when that timer runs out so we can avoid interrupting you. If a candidate is attacked directly, they'll have a 1-minute opportunity to respond if they wish. And then candidates will also have an opportunity for a closing statement of 2 minutes. But first, you'll each get a 2-minute opening statement. And we're going to start with Jenny, if you'd introduce yourself to viewers.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Long Beach Post, and for hosting this public forum. My name is Jenny Gonzalez. I would be honored to earn your vote to become your next city council person from the 9th district. I want to thank the voters from the 9th district for your trust that got me to the November 8th general election. Okay, the change we deserve is here. After 18 years, we have the opportunity to elect a candidate for the people. I'm a candidate for the people. And I sincerely believe that the most important endorsement there is are the voters' endorsement. They're people. They're not big unions. They're not big time politicians. They're not corporations that don't even happen to live here. And they're not elected officials. They're voters who have confidence enough to turn out and vote for you. That's who I want to impress. Okay, I'm a CPA, and I'm a 20-year resident of the 9th district. I'm also the founder and a CEO of a nonprofit. One of my focuses is mental health. And what I want to do for North Long Beach is make it a happier neighborhood, a pedestrian neighborhood. Okay, I believe in equity, fairness, and transparency. As your next city council member, I will use my expertise as an accountant and an IRS auditor to identify wasteful spending in the city budget. And I want to know the District 9 residents to know that their taxpayer money is being spent equitably. Okay, we want our community to be served by police services and homeless services programs. And please keep in mind that I will serve with compassion as your city council person. Please vote for me. That's it.
Thank you. And Joni, you're up next.
Good afternoon. And again, yes, thank you to the Long Beach Post for hosting this forum. My name is Dr. Joni Ricks-Oddie, and I'm proud to be with you today as candidate for Long Beach City Council District 9. Over the past decade, I've been hard at work in the 9th district, helping us deliver the uptown renaissance you see today in North Long Beach. I serve on my local neighborhood association board, business improvement district, and volunteer with countless District 9 nonprofits. I currently serve as the chair of the Long Beach Planning Commission, where I've had direct impact and vote in bringing new businesses, affordable housing, and economic drivers like banks and grocery stores to the 9th district and throughout Long Beach. Our 9th district community deserves someone who'll be ready on day one, someone who will actively and passionately advocate for them and put an equity lens on issues that would serve to disenfranchise us. Someone who not only shares the community's concerns around homelessness, public safety, and the environment, but has a demonstrated track record of success. The issues we are facing are not unique, but my experience as a public health professional will bring a unique lens to how we work on those challenges. As a 9th District Council member, I believe we must focus on continuing our partnerships with local, county, and state agencies to provide a compassionate approach to people experiencing homelessness, invest in our business corridors throughout the district to provide opportunities for new businesses and promote our existing businesses that are still struggling to recover from COVID-19. I'd like to create a public health subcommittee on the Long Beach City Council to help us plan for future health emergencies and develop an Office of Data and Evaluation to create true metrics for success with all of our city-run programs to guarantee we are maximizing every dollar in our budget. As a mother of 2 young children, I want to ensure that they are growing up in a community that they can be proud of, and also see a local government that brings people together who represent different voices to ensure we are providing a seat at the table for everyone. Lastly, I'm proud to have earned the support of an incredible coalition of leaders, including all of the 9th District Neighborhood Association presidents. They have given me their support because I've demonstrated for the last decade my commitment to our community and am considered a trusted voice in this community. Thank you.
Great. So we're just going to snake back and forth. So the question will go to you first, Joni. This is a question that we've asked all candidates so far, because I think it's voters think that it's one of the biggest issues facing the city, and it's homelessness. What do you think are the root causes of homelessness, and what do you propose the city do that it's not currently doing to address the rising number of people experiencing homelessness in Long Beach?
I think one of the biggest things we've seen over the last few years, right, is issues around housing displacement and just the economics, right? People, loss of jobs, and then the additional issue of issues around mental health being some of the biggest reasons and drivers for homelessness. I think the city currently is doing a really good job on addressing homelessness, with our health department being the lead agency. I think one of the things that is an issue that I've seen knocking on doors up here in North Long Beach is that many people don't know that the health department is our lead agency. They naturally think that, if they see someone experiencing homelessness or they see someone on the corridor, they think to call the police as the first response. And so a lot of it is about educating our population and our residents around, like, who is it that you should call, talking to them about the multi-service center. So when I've talked to businesses, most of them don't actually know that. They don't know about the outreach teams. They don't realize that. And if they do know, they'll call once, right? And they'll think, okay, well, I've called once, that is going to address the issue. And what they don't realize is that most people who are experiencing homelessness have had poor experiences with city agencies and officials. So they don't trust individuals, right? They don't trust those organizations. So it takes it takes somewhere between 15 and 20 touches to get a lot of these folks to say yes. And so we as a community, if we're going to help our unhoused, neighbors, we're going to have to keep calling. We're going to have to keep being persistent and making sure that those outreach teams are continuing to go out and making those touches, building those relationships, and making people feel like they're part of the community and that we're treating them with compassion. And so, with my public health lens, I'm going to make sure, one of the main focuses I'm going to have on city council is making sure that our health department is well resourced so that they can do the work that they are uniquely qualified to do in this particular area.
Mm-hmm. And so this came up a little bit on Tuesday with the discussion about Metro, and people are being forced off the train and there's no services available at the time that they're being put off the train. And the city has recently expanded its reach team capacity to 2, but those teams don't work past what I think 8, 9 o'clock. Yeah. So I mean, is maybe a solution, and we'll give you 30 seconds, but like, does the city need to have like a graveyard shift for these outreach workers where like they're available at times when there's nobody else currently to call except for the police?
Well, honestly, yeah, right. I mean, part of the reason, like I said, again, people reach out to our police departments because the police department is available 24/7, right? I've had conversations with faculty. So I work at University of California, Irvine in the Center for Statistical Consulting. So I've worked with faculty members, say in the School of Nursing and et cetera, that have done research projects where they have done outreach to folks experiencing homelessness so they know best practices. And that's exactly one of the things that they talk about is expanding hours and making sure that you have individuals that are available when people actually need them.
Right. Yeah. Got to have services available around the clock. Homelessness doesn't,
it's not a 9 to 5 thing, right?
Right. Jenny, the same question to you. What do you think are the root causes of homelessness, and what do you propose the city do differently to address the rising population of people in the city that are experiencing homelessness?
Okay, there are different reasons why different people are homeless. For example, one population that I know of, for example, my stepdaughter with mental disabilities, she would have been homeless if we had not bought a larger house and moved her in. So sometimes women with disabilities, mental disabilities, they become victims and we have to get them off the street quicker. However, I'm told by my friend who works with that population, there's a real need for housing for that a particular segment of the population. Now that's one. Another one I see is just women who are in a transition. People get divorced. So I think there needs to be some kind of a special provision made for women in transition, which usually have kids with them. So there's something like a tax break for homeowners who take in women in transition, and somehow maybe if that could be worked out. And there's all kinds of other ways, but another thing that you have to face that the salaries that we pay the ordinary workers doesn't match the rents. There's a little bit of math applied to that. We can get salaries commensurate with rents here. Things like that are first steps to acknowledging the fact that there is a housing crisis that we're not addressing, that we must address.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very expensive to live here and anywhere in LA County, really.
Well, if you factor in that people with disabilities, can you imagine? Here I'm healthy, and I can make, but I'm buying a house, but I consider it making the rent, so I can make the rent here. But imagine you're a person with a disability or these other things that keep you from getting employment to make the rent. I mean, just imagine it's a difficult life, and we must acknowledge that and help them.
Absolutely. Jeremiah has the next question, and I believe it's to Jenny first.
Yes, and the issue we've heard from voters about the most, other than homelessness and housing, is crime. Crime is up locally, and the Long Beach Police Department, one of the measures they've touted about driving down crime is putting more officers on the street, but specifically walking the beat or riding bicycles. And I'm wondering if you guys think that's an effective approach, and what else could be done, whether it's in the police department or outside of the police department, to try to prevent any more rise in crime. And Jenny, that's first to you.
Okay, number one, I'm not focusing so much as paint a picture here. I want North Long Beach to become a pedestrian neighborhood. I work late at night, and I need to get out. I need to be able to walk at night. And I think maybe if every park can have a community house, a coffee house where we can walk to and meet our friends and walk back home. We need cops along the way to facilitate that. We just don't need cops for cops' sake, and they have to respect the fact that they're here on our land, and they need to respect our rules and respect our cultures. The cops are our invited guests. I have to speak English. They're invited guests, and they need to go by our rules and respect our culture. And our culture is that we want to walk around in our neighborhood and stop being afraid of each other. The pandemic has not helped anything. So we have to acknowledge the fact that we've had a setback. We need to get to know each other in our community, to really need to get back together and find out what's happening.
Joni, we'll go to you with that same question. Do you need me to read it again?
Please.
So crime's up, and the police have said two of the main ways they're trying to combat this are putting more officers on the street, but on bicycles, on foot. Do you think that's a successful approach? And is there anything else that could be done outside the department or inside the department?
Yeah, so, public safety has been a growing and continuing concern here in District 9, and we should acknowledge all over the city, right? And I think the program, the community policing program that the Long Beach Police Department has put into place is actually very good, right? Because it increases visibility, increases interaction with our residents, with the police officers, making sure that we're able to communicate with them about our concerns. Because not everybody necessarily always feels comfortable or feels like they can call dispatch and report something, right? So, but if you have a police officer on your street that is your community police officer that you're used to seeing, you build that rapport, you build that relationship, and that improves the interaction that the community has with our police officers. But from a larger context, I'm going to put on my public health hat here, because issues around crime and safety are public health issues. And sometimes people don't necessarily frame it like that, but our public safety personnel are often asked to do a job that they're not necessarily sufficiently trained for, depending on the context that we're in. And it says we continue to, really assess our public safety continuum. We really need to reframe the discussion from simply just a kind of addressing crime as a singular issue to the broader ideas around crime reduction, intervention, and prevention. And to do so, we really need to think more broadly about the influences and circumstances that people face and that are relevant factors, such as, their age, their economic circumstances, where they're born, where they live, where they work, where they play. Really thinking about those broader contexts. We call them social determinants of health, right? Those broader contexts that allow for an environment where people are interacting with our kind of incarceral and justice system, and making sure that when we're thinking about crime prevention, we're thinking about it in a more holistic terms. And that's something that, again, a public health lens is really going to support our city in doing.
And I want to follow up on that. Just so what's actually a step that you could take on the council to look more through that public health lens, and then the change you could make that actually affects the discussion we're having?
Yeah, so again, I'm always going to go back to the city of Long Beach is unique, right? It's, well, not unique, but it's one of 2 cities in the county, right, that has its own health department, right? The folks in the health department are folks that have youth violence prevention programs. They have lots of really great programming that they've developed over time, that because they are majority grant funded, it's difficult for them to pivot and focus on those. So there are lots of things that we have on the shelf right now that could be enacted as part of, the work that we're doing as far as public safety, and thinking about like, how do we interact and making sure that people from a financial standpoint have the support that they need, so that perhaps they're not in a situation where they have to commit a crime. So we have things already present. Sorry, I'm going a little bit long, but we have things that are already present and developed. It's just making sure that we are supporting, say, our health department in order to do it.
And Jenny, I wanted to give you an extra 30 seconds there too. If it looked like you had something you wanted to add.
I think she has a great resume to be the head of the health department, but I'm not sure if that's what we need on city council. When I think of public safety, I think of typically public safety is the most expensive thing with municipalities. That's what I'm studying. I'm studying governmental accounting, and all these different governments I'm studying. Public safety is like the #1 cost of our city government. We just don't give out money for free. We find out what the money's paying for. And one of the things I don't like to pay for is new boat pay. That's what the cops call overtime, new boat pay. And we need to trim some of that new boat pay, and we need to look at other items, and that's the skill I have. We're not running for a health department, we're running for city council. You need an accountant, somebody who knows how to trim the budget. That's how I know how to do.
Yeah. Most people in Long Beach can't afford a boat, and and I mean, a lot of people are struggling to pay their rents. And this next question is about housing. You guys are probably familiar with the city's inclusionary housing ordinance that was recently adopted. It applies to a small portion of the city, downtown, the corridor along Long Beach Boulevard. If you're elected to city council, would you support revisiting that idea and maybe having it apply to a larger part of the city, maybe even the whole city? Because as housing is being built, the majority of it is market rate, and market rate is not something that people are finding, easy to afford. It's very expensive. So this one goes to Joni first. Would you support revisiting that and having it apply to a larger part of the city?
I think eventually, yes. So just for a little bit of background, for those who don't know, I am chair of the city's planning commission. So I was on the commission when we passed the inclusionary housing ordinance. And the reason where there are 2 areas, right? There's area 1 and area 2. So area 1 is downtown and midtown, where we have mandated levels of affordable housing that have to go into developments. And then everywhere else in the city is area 2. And the reason for that, and the robust discussion we had on planning commission, was just basically thinking about economics of the city, and the fact that for the majority of the city, there has been very little housing development outside of downtown and midtown, right? So the concern was, if you put in additional kind of regulations you're going to diminish and decrease the very little that we have in many parts of the city. But again, it's like, again, my background, so I work as a statistician. So I'm one of those folks that I want to see, now that we've implemented that inclusionary housing ordinance, I want to see, like, you know, and I pushed for really good metrics for measuring success, right? Because I think that's what's important here, is like, how do we measure whether or not it's been successful? And once we're able to do that, we then can say, okay, how might we expand it or augment it in ways to increase that housing production, that affordable housing production in other parts of the city? But I think it's important for us to say, where are we at now? Where were we before? Is it working? And then if it's not working, what do we change it to work better for our city? So.
Okay, Jenny, the same question to you, just, and for context, you know, for people watching at home who probably aren't, you know, in the weeds with this, the ordinance basically requires developers who build in these regions to set aside a percentage of the units as affordable. I believe it's 11% right now, maybe 12.
I think that's right around it, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if you have a 100-unit building, 11 of those have to be set aside for a certain level of affordability. If you're elected to city council, Jenny, would you support looking at that and expanding it to a larger part of the city?
But I think it should be a higher percentage, 11%. I mean, what percentage of people don't have I know of people that go from one housing crisis to the next in Long Beach, and then their life keeps falling apart, and then they get blamed for the situation, you know, and I don't think 11% is enough. So, you know, I would revisit the whole thing, you know.
All right. A short point.
Do you think, I mean, what percentage, what's percentage of poverty here? What's the poverty rate here?
I think it's over 11%.
Yeah.
I think rent burden percent is above 11% too, but
yeah.
Jeremiah has another housing question for you guys.
And it's a little more general, but it touches very much on the same idea of how, I'll just ask it. What's your plan to draw investment to North Long Beach, but also do that without driving up costs for existing residents who might be vulnerable to displacement? And we're going to go first to Jenny on that one.
Are you talking about gentrification, the more industry or whatever we get here, the more dollars the neighborhood get I can't say the word, gentrification? Is that it?
There you go. Yeah.
No, you know, home sweet home. Have you ever heard of it? Make it a place where people want to stay, you know, make it a place with culture. And everybody thinks, oh, it's Jenny. She hates cops. You know, no. Cops are here to serve us, you know, and make the neighborhood a walking neighborhood, you know, make it a culture here, make it a place for everybody can express themselves, you know. And I went to mental health is it, make it a place of art, you know. And I'm not a proponent of alcohol though, but I am a proponent of marijuana, you know. Make it a place of art, great coffee, a great dessert, you know, playing cards in the park. Make it a place where people can hang out at night without being threatened. Make it a place that, you know what, this is what men and women have transitioned as they go through life, but women do it with kids. Okay, accept that fact. Give them a place to transition to. You know, let's stop denying things exist. And by the way, every morning with coffee, we should talk about 1 hour of parking. What you think? Because people have to accept the fact that there's just not parking here. Okay.
Thank you. And Joni, same question to you. How do you attract that investment to North Long Beach without potentially displacing people?
You know, it's actually a really great question, right? I think there are a couple of things, and I think sometimes people don't realize kind of the dynamics here in North Long Beach. One of the things that I think is great at kind of protecting us from the level of displacement is the fact that North Long Beach actually has a high level of home ownership. We have very high home ownership rates here. And so that is one thing that protects our particular community from significant amounts of displacement. And then to be completely honest, we haven't had, I mean, we're having some development right now, but we haven't had a ton of development in North Long Beach over the last several decades. And much of what's coming are kind of things that are basic amenities. So, you know, like we got our first bank in the last like several decades up here, right? Up until and when I moved to North Long Beach, you know, a decade ago, we didn't have any coffee shops. So many of the amenities and developments that's coming to our community are things that are basic amenities that anyone in any community should want to make their community livable and for them to be able to have the resources that they need. One of the things that we noticed during the pandemic, they had a article in the Long Beach Business Journal talking about how when people were staying at home, our sales tax revenue was 35%. We spent a lot of money outside of the city. And I'm buying and purchasing things outside because we don't necessarily have the development, we don't have the resources, we don't have the community serving businesses here that we need. And then additionally, I think our city council has put in significant tenant protections over the last several years to make sure that people are being able to stay in their homes. And those are things that we should continue to have discussions on, or like, do we need to expand those? Do we need to augment those? What does that look like? To make sure that people who are residents here who want to stay here, because again, North Long Beach is the last bastion really in the city of affordability. We have a lot of young families here. We want to make sure that they're able to stay here, put down roots, and are able to, buy a home if they want to buy a home, and all of that.
So let's make this follow up, not a full 2-minute. This was a suggestion from a reader. They said they want to know your elevator pitch. You get businesses. So like 30 seconds is like an elevator ride. So in 30 seconds, we'll do Joni first and go back to Ginny, but your elevator pitch to a business person who you're trying to get to North Long Beach.
Oh, so my business pitch would be, this is a great community of young families, young people, folks who love their communities. Our entire, community is covered by neighborhood associations that are closely linked. We are supportive of our businesses. We want to be able to have business here that are community serving. And we have a lot of low hanging fruit. Example, we got our first bank recently. We just recently got our first couple of coffee shops. There's lots of community serving businesses that we need here that aren't here. And there's an availability for you to be successful.
All right, Jenny, elevator door is closing. You got 30 seconds to convince a business to move to North Long Beach.
Okay, North Long Beach is number one. Think of climate change. Downtown's going to be underwater soon, coming up to North Long Beach, so far we're surviving, but aside from that, thank you for putting your trust in me. And I'm not looking for the big shots. I'm looking for the little shots to endorse me, the little shots that are going to the voting booth and voting for me. I'm a little shot too. Okay. My opponent outspent me for like $80,000, gee, that's a lot. Okay.
Elevator ride's over.
Okay, that was a free commercial.
Do you want to respond to that, Joni?
Okay.
Oh, well, my only response was I just wanted to make sure that the elevator pitch was supposed to be to businesses, right? About why they should come to our community, not necessarily our elevator pitch to why people should vote for us.
Right. Yeah. Move to high ground, I think was her point. But Jeremiah has another question about rising tides.
It's a little more complicated than the elevator pitch, so there's a lot here, so be ready. But it's about the Queen Mary. So basically what should be done with the Queen Mary, it's looming out there. The city has put a bunch of options on the table that range from spending 100 million to 190 million to scrap it, 200 million to 500 million to dry dock it, or just preserving it in place could be 175 million. So with those in mind, what would be your plan for dealing with the Queen Mary, and would you support completing that plan using public money? And we're first going to Ginny on this one.
Gee, complicated. I think it was a mistake way back when. It's just gotten bigger. It's like as mushroomed, it's snowballed, and now it's all on our plate. And we say, what the heck are we going to do with this? It's a mistake. Treat it like a mistake and dispose of it as efficiently without polluting the environment. And then say, gee, that was a mistake that I'm not going to pay for. Somebody else screwed up way back then. I refuse to keep paying for it. I'm going to accept the fact and get over it and move on. It's called sunk costs in accounting. You need to get away from sunk costs. They're irrelevant to decision making.
All right, thank you. That was to the point. And Joni, same to you. What would your plan be, and what would you support completing that plan using public money?
Yeah, so I think where the rubber meets the road here is the comment you made about public money, because no matter what we do, we are basically going to be spending several $100 million, right? And whether that's the city itself or some type of private investment. In my mind, if we could get some type of private investment willing to take over the Queen Mary, perhaps, really talk seriously about the development of that particular area into some type of like actual entertainment area, I think that's what has to happen. But I think where the rubber meets the road here is that we have to talk about like, what do we want the Queen Mary to be? It's an iconic asset that's associated with the city, but like, what do we want it to be moving forward? Is it a hotel? Is it an attraction? Is it a part of a larger, more broader development? That's the kind of the conversation that I haven't heard like completely flushed out in the city. And I want to know, I'm like, what are the real opportunities here? Because unfortunately, we spent, several decades with different operators, and we are now in a place where it's in disrepair, right? It requires a lot in order for it to be usable, right? As an asset for the city. And so if we're going to put that amount of money in it, like I need to hear a clear plan from city staff and perhaps some folks from our development community about what potentially we really could do and if it's even feasible, because otherwise I legitimately can't say yes to using public funds for this when there's so many other things in our city that need funding and need support, so many other programs that we could be supporting our community with that funds. With those funds. And so from a priority standpoint, I prioritize people, and that's who I want to prioritize when we think about how to use public funds in our budget.
Right. And one of the big expenses that future council members are going to face, especially in districts, like 9, 7, 1, is trying to find the money to produce more green space, open space. The current council person has tried for 8 years. Other council people have tried to secure money. I mean, the city put out a report that says it's going to cost, tens of millions of dollars to acquire and develop land into park space. So what is your plan to bring more open green space to North Long Beach? And this one's to Joni first.
So that's a complicated question, right? Because we're a built out community. So unfortunately, it's not that we can't necessarily manufacture open space, out of thin air. What we've done a couple of things over the last several years that I think pertain to this particular question. So one thing is we as community members work with our current elected officials to do an open space master plan and really talk about the assets that we currently have as far as our open space and making sure that we're able to utilize them appropriately, effectively, and efficiently for the current residents here. And then we as community members also have gotten together. So we have something up here called the North Long Beach Neighborhood Alliance. And we as neighborhood associations got together and we talked about the projects that were potential up here in North Long Beach for us to be able to expand our green space. One of those things was something called the 91 Greenbelt. We as neighborhood associations we try to be altruistic here, and we recognize that the area of our community that has the least amount of green space is the area north of the 91. And so we really prioritize the idea of really putting our resources into planning for that 91 Greenbelt and really saying, okay, we have this unutilized property around this freeway. The freeway is not going anywhere. How can we utilize that space to expand the opportunities for green space here in the North Long Beach in the 9th District? And so that's the kind of creative aspects that we need to use and thoughts we need to have, is basically bringing the community in and saying, hey, can you identify locations, whether they be small or large, where we might potentially be able to partner, say, with the city agency, the state, the county, to expand that green space, maybe tack it onto an existing infrastructure project so that we really can serve our community well. Because again, I have an 18-month-old and a 4-year-old. I want to make sure that they have open space and green space in order to enjoy their community, just like every other place here in the city of Long Beach.
But given that, like you said, it's built out more or less, you're saying it might have to be like more non-traditional green space.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jenny, what is your plan for? Go ahead.
I would like to see the LA River development, more of that, and just better parks, and even buying up houses if necessary, doing whatever necessary to give us green space, because congestion is a big issue here. I'm from the sticks of Mississippi, so when I fly back and forth, the first thing I notice is, oh man, this place is really congested. And so we need whatever it takes to give us more green space and more privacy and more personal space. And I see that's really a mental health issue. There's not enough personal space. And so it all ties in together, green space, mental health, and all that personal space. So
right, and Joni probably is, I mean, she knows this from being, the chair of the planning commission, but I mean, are you supportive of, like, the city does already require certain open space elements to be included into housing production? Is
I
that
would increase that too.
okay?
Take a bigger chunk. And it needs to be more green space. It really does. It's the first thing I notice when I come back here. It really needs more green space.
Okay. Well, I think I have all the big broad questions this time, so I have another broad one to throw at you. And Ginny, we're going to come to you first on this one. So the average life expectancy in North Long Beach is 5 to 7 years lower than the average life expectancy in wealthier communities in East Long Beach. And the pandemic only magnified those health and income disparities. So what would be a concrete step you would want to take as a council member to actually start tackling such a wide-ranging problem? Ginny, go ahead.
Well, I like to have a health food council, not just, we don't have to, become, no, I just want to clean up our diet, just a committee to clean up our diet in North Long Beach, and look at the community food, and I'm going to see. And I mean, I can pig out on junk too, but that's not sustainable. And we have to have a sustainable fuel in our sustainable neighborhood and do every other thing. I know it's boring, but it really is true. Due to sustainability things, a walkable neighborhood, a space, and to make it a happy neighborhood, happier than ever. So anyhow, make it a happy neighborhood where people walk around, hanging around, and enjoying each other. Right now it's too easy to check out and to be on Facebook to your friends and wherever. But it's more difficult to be local, and I think it's time to be local.
And just to follow a quick 30-second follow-up, can you put that into a proposal? Like how would you bring those values into a proposal before the city council that would actually encourage that connection you're talking about?
Oh, number one, we need cops to supervise us as little old people. By the time I wash my dishes and do everything for everybody else, it's 10 o'clock and everybody else is in bed. But suppose I want to go to the coffee shop in the park. The cops ought to stand there and supervise me as I go to the coffee shop. I'm not getting drunk. I don't even drink. And I drink my coffee, smoke my little joint, and then have fun with my friends, and then I go home. To me, that's old age, how old age should be. Don't you think so? Not only old age should be that way. Young age, something about alcohol, it always seems to screw up, so I would avoid the alcohol and go for the pot. And then since I'm a coffee freak, let's go for coffee. Okay. Neighborhood known for coffee and pot. Okay, that's my neighborhood.
Joni, to you, do you need me to restate that question, or you got
Please.
it? So I was talking about the life expectancy disparities between North Long Beach and South Long Beach, and it's a problem that was magnified by the pandemic, and it's a very big, broad problem. I'm wondering how, as a council person, you begin to take concrete steps to actually address that.
You wanted to throw the big issue at us. Well, from a broader context, right, we're talking about, and this is where my public health experience comes in. Really, we're talking about structural issues, right, with the city of Long Beach, but just more broadly, right? When we think about, like, historically, for folks who don't know about issues about, like, redlining and where, say, because, North Long Beach is predominantly people of color, right? The reason why North Long Beach, from an economic and a racial standpoint looks the way it is structural, right? And so those structural issues that affect Black and brown people and folks of color mean that we have lower life expectancy because the economics are around that, because of the discriminatory practices, issues around housing, access to healthcare, right? A lot of these are the things that we dealt with when we were doing the framework for racial reconciliation. I led those health equity discussions, and these were all the topics that came up, right? And so many of the recommendations that came out of that around really thinking about issues around diversity, equity, inclusion, engaging our community, making sure that we are activating them and getting their ideas about who they want to be and what they need. So a lot of this might actually just be a larger interaction with our stakeholders, with our residents, right? Talking about doing an actual needs assessment and saying, what do you actually need from your city? I think we spend a lot of time kind of talking at people and telling them what we think they need, as opposed to having them tell us what they need. Because again, we're a public institution. Our job is to invest in our communities. And again, we're talking about a city trying to take on very large structural issues that have predominated for decades. And so from a city council perspective, a lot of that is going to be the implementation of many of the recommendations around issues around our youth, education, housing policies, interacting with our healthcare providers here in the city to really think holistically about how we implement all those recommendations that we had from the framework of racial reconciliation.
And to push a little bit deeper, just like I did with Jenny, I'm wondering how you put that into a proposal that you can actually bring forward.
So it is a series of proposals, right? So I think that's the thing, right? Like, so you're talking about an issue that's so broad and so large, is that basically we're going to be carving, I don't want to say for carving up, but basically taking segments of many of the initiatives that came out of that framework, and then basically saying we're gonna have to bring each of them to city council separately and say, okay, this is this particular issue. So whether it's a housing issue, it's an access to healthcare issue, whatever it is, and then basically saying, okay, how does the city interact with the stakeholders here in order to improve our community? But it's going to be over the long term. This is not going to be one particular agenda item. It's going to be a series of agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, we have I think 2 questions left. So this is a big one. I'm always kind of I marvel at everybody that's running for office this year, because whoever's in office is going to have to deal with this budget mess next year, and it's not looking good. It could improve, but so right now the current projection is what, 25.6 million and a million deficit for next year, and that's not taking into account the new contract negotiations for the police officers and the firefighters, which could significantly raise that deficit depending on what happens with that. If service reductions become necessary next year, what are you willing to cut? And I think this goes to Joan.
Yeah, so that's not the first time I've heard that question. And honestly, I'll admit it is a hard pill to swallow, because if you for those folks who listened in on the budget conversations we had, when we think about like city services and investing in our community, we were hearing a lot from folks who work for the city, right? And their need for the city to invest back into its workers, right? And making sure that we're able to retain people, because we spend a lot of money recruiting and then having to replace those positions, right? And so it's hard to say what you can cut back, because during the pandemic, people also saw, a decrease in city services already. So we're already talking about having to kind of go back and backfill and do deferred maintenance in communities and things like that. All I can say is what I would not cut, and what I would not cut again is like I'm going back to really investing in our community, thinking around those larger subject matters around public safety and homelessness, and really thinking about like, hey, how do we leverage the resources that we have with our health department, with our existing city resources, to really say, how do we tackle some of the larger issues? But honestly, I can't say, not having done a deep dive into our budget and what our resources are going to be on the ground this time next year when we're really talking about it. It's hard for me to say what I personally would cut.
So you said you wouldn't be the one thing you wouldn't would be like
our health. It would be our health department.
But our health,
the funding that actually goes to our health department. So
right, but I mean, the health department gets such a small portion of the general.
Exactly, but exactly, okay. They get such a small amount. But I mean, I'm being honest. I don't know what I would cut. I don't know.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to and that's an answer is if you don't know, that's I just want to make sure you have the opportunity. Jenny, $25.6 million deficit, possibly getting bigger, maybe I could get smaller, but I mean, there will likely be a deficit of some size next year, what are you willing to cut from the budget to get it balanced?
You're asking the wrong question. The question is, like a dollar cut in this department produces a different dollar than a dollar. So you have to look at efficiencies, and that is where governmental efficiencies, and that's where my training is. For the last 3.5, 4 years, I've been studying government efficiencies. It first started with my husband. He was studying the city's website for years, and then after he started that, we started studying my hometown's website. And so I've been studying governmental information accounting for like 3.5 years, and now I'm studying governmental accounting at Rutgers online. And it's not any old dollar. It's you have to study efficiencies. You just don't cut dollars, you see. And also you have to say to the public, what would you rather have, this or that? 70,000 on here or 70. Let the public say, oh no, this is more important, because the way it goes through City Hall, the public doesn't realize that they're trading off opportunity by some of the choices that's done at City Hall. So it's efficient, the efficiency of the dollar, and it's not just across the board dollar cuts.
So I just want to make sure I'm
understanding. Teach accounting. You want me to do it on the blackboard?
No. Well, I covering City Hall for as long as efficiency is a way that they say cut sometimes.
It's not like across the board cut. It's like, where's the most efficient dollars to be cut? There needs to be some efficiency, and I think that who's not doing it is Laura Dodd. She's flunking at studying government the efficiencies of City Hall, and that's what I aspire to do. If you elect me city council person, thank you.
So let's cut the city auditor's office then. Let's.
But I think that
the city auditor's office.
Her forte is not governmental efficiencies in government, and that needs to be her forte, because she's out there looking out for the taxpayer. Hopefully, hopefully.
It was a joke. The city auditor's office is important. Jeremiah has a final question for you.
Well, two CPAs on the council never killed anybody.
All right. Thank you, Jenny. Actually, we're going to come right back to you on this one too first. So no matter who's elected here, both parts of the 9th district now are going to have a new council member. They've had the same council member for a long time, and either way, you're going to come in and be different than both those previous council members. Tell us how you would lead that district differently. And Jenny, you're first.
Oh, transparency. I would like to hang it up from maybe we should do every banners. The Federal Transparency and Citizen Participation Act lives here. Oh Lord, hang it out to dry. We want to see the information. And also we want to see accurate information. And you know what? Some of these statistics I just do not believe, because you know why? They are not true. We need statistical truthfulness. I can't say the words, statistical truthfulness, and we need transparency. And that's something we need to improve on.
Thank you. And Joni, to you.
Oh, can you go ahead and repeat the question?
Yeah, basically, you're going to be a new city council person for both sides of this district that were changed around. And how would you lead differently than the previous council members?
My big focus is always going to be on data, and it's going to be on community, right? So I've built relationships here in the 9th district over the last decade. And so I'm going to leverage those relationships and making sure that people feel heard, even if they don't necessarily agree with, the decisions that you always make. People want you to know that you are taking into account their perspective, that that you're hearing their concerns, and that's weighing in on the policies and the recommendations that you're making. And then I'm going to want really clear data and metrics from our city about the programs and policies that we put in place, and saying, okay, are these things working? Are they not working? How do we shift our resources and our dollars to the most effective programs and policies that are going to benefit my community and benefit all of the city of Long Beach? And so I'm going to leverage a lot of that as I'm interacting with the different city department heads, and really saying, okay, give me background here, give me context, so that I can make sure that as we move forward, we're moving it forward in a positive direction and not repeating any kind of mistakes or things that may have been made in the past.
All right, thank you. And I think, Jason, we're going to move to closing statements now.
Yeah. So who went first on opening?
It'll be Jennifer, or Jenny went first, so it'll be this time it'll be Joni first, and then Jenny. So Joni, if you want to give your 2-minute closing statement.
Sure. So I want to thank you really for your time today, and just caring about the direction of our city. I know these types of not endorsement, but these kind of interviews are a labors of love, right? It takes time and effort to create these, and so I just want to thank you for that. Again, I'm incredibly honored to have the support and endorsement of so many local, state, and federal elected officials, working family organizations, and numerous community and neighborhood association leaders. I'm honored and humbled to know that I'm considered a leader in my community and that my thoughts and opinions are well respected. I've been privileged to serve in this community and at city level appointed positions, including my neighborhood association, our business improvement district, and on city commissions, most notably now that I'm chair of the planning commission. Having district level and city level perspectives on many issues facing Long Beach will allow me to hit the ground day one. I know that the work that has to be done, and I will build on my record of experience as I take the next step in my leadership journey. I'm grateful for the enthusiastic support I've received since we announced our candidacy at the beginning of the year. And I think the strong first place showing that I had in the primary shows that we have a strong team and I have a lot of support behind me and the community is behind me. And so I'm looking forward to partnering together to improve our city and elevating the ideals of service to our community that we all share. And so I just want to thank you all for your time today.
Thank you. And Ginny, to you, 2 minutes closing statement.
I apologize. My earliest statement, I have a campaign manager and he gave me a closing statement. I accidentally put it in the wrong place. Anyhow, but I would like to say I'm here on the shoulders of my husband, Tomas Gonzalez. Okay. So to my friends and neighbors in the 9th District, thank you for your trust and support. Your endorsement means a lot to me. And I appreciate your votes in the June primary election. It shows that my opponents went over 100 to be elected for city council, and now my opponent so far is going to outspend me by $80,000. I'm the only candidate running for district council that has signed the official pledge not to accept campaign limits. My opponent rejected campaign limit expenditures. Our city council seat cannot be bought for a campaign hemorrhaging in the money. And for now, the time is 18 years. We've been waiting for change. We finally have the voice to determine who our next city council member will be. It's me. I'm your candidate. I'm a person of the people, obviously. My many years of public service include I was co-founder of the Long Beach Clean Government Project with my husband, Tomas Gonzalez. He's the best. And I was secretary of the League of United Latin American Citizens, Long Beach LULAC. I was an organizer with the Willie Velasquez Institute, the Voter Registration and Civil Rights Project. I've been protecting and serving people with mental health issues in Long Beach. And please visit my campaign page, Jenny Gonzalez for Long Beach City Council. This weekend, my campaign website will be up for a live viewing. Oh, Lord, no. Let's make history together. Vote for me. You're the most important endorsement I have. What do you think?
Well, thank you guys. Thank you to the candidates for joining us today, and thank you for everybody who's going to maybe watch this eventually. I hope you do, especially if you live in the 9th District. You have a choice to make between Jenny Gonzalez and Joni Ricks-Oddie, and that the election's on November 8th. By the time you watch this, you'll probably have your vote by mail ballot. If you vote from home, you could maybe have it with some coffee and some weed. I don't know.
Happier than ever.
Yeah. But everybody in this election is going to have the opportunity to vote on, for mayor, for the 4 citywide ballot measures that are also very important. If you live in the 9th, if you live in the 3rd, if you live in the 5th, you also get to vote for a city council member. It's a really consequential election. So I hope you guys do show up and do that on November 8th or before then. For more election coverage that we're going to be posting, today and in the weeks between then, make sure to go to lbpost.com/elections. I'm Jason Ruiz. This is Jeremiah Dobruck. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and have a good day, afternoon, evening.